Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Working Drawings Interactive Training class. This class everybody will be on mute in this class, so if you do happen to have any questions at any point, please feel free to go ahead and type those into the questions area. I'm going to try and pause after each section and then go through the questions there, so that way we can continue on through each part of the class and then answer questions at the end. And then at the very end, we'll also have a question and answer period. If you happen to have any follow-up questions at all, we'll take that time to answer any questions there as well. You feel free to go ahead and follow along with the model that we sent you. So you can copy along as I'm doing the work, or you can sit back and relax and just take notes and watch what we're doing, and then try this out on your own later on. I'm just to make sure. So yes, Curtis, I am speaking. So let me just see here what is happening with your audio. So let me see if you have audio turned on. So your audio, okay, his audio's off. So just give me 1 second here. So let me just give you a second here just to finish sending this. Okay, so we're gonna continue on. I'll let him figure out how he's gonna get his audio figured out here. Okay, so again, the class is gonna be recorded, so I will be sending this out at the end as well. So you will have the video to follow along with, and I'll also be sending out the booklet that will help you go through and try this out on your own. So again, please feel free to follow along with the model or take notes and try it again on your own. So the first thing I want to talk about is we're going to look at our model here. So this model is actually fully complete. So we're looking at a complete model that is now ready to be brought into our working drawing sheets. So if we take a look at our model in a 3D view, if we go to the any of the 3D options here to the exterior view, we can see that that model is actually complete. We have everything drawn out. Before we move on to our working drawing sheets, I like to take advantage of certain features that are only in the model view that are going to help you create certain things very quickly. The first thing I want to point out is underneath our settings and underneath our document settings, we have a control here for dimensions. Now, I like to add in my dimensions on my on my model view because of a feature that we call automatic exterior dimensions. And it will automatically add in all your dimensions based on the settings that we're going to look at here. So with just one click of the mouse, it's going to add in all of your dimensions for you. But you need to define what you want those dimensions to be and how you want them to be set up. So when you select the Dimension Auto Exterior, you're going to get a Dimension Auto Exterior section in this document settings that allows you to go through and define how you want your dimensions to be displayed. So right now, when we look at this, it's going to include a certain dimension string for each of our options here. And each of those options are going to control So each of those options are going to control the, oh, I have to close the dialog, sorry, settings and document settings and dimension auto exterior. So again, each of these are going to control certain aspects of the drawing. So the overalls are going to be from one edge to the other edge. So that's going to be your overall dimension string, and it'll be from one edge to the next. When you look at projections, these are going to be things like this part right here. So when I take a look at this part of the model, I have a bit of a projection that sticks out from the rest of my model. So I'll have a dimension string that runs from here to here, and then from here to here, and then again from this corner to this corner. So that would be a projection in my dimension string. The openings are going to be any opening that is punched into an exterior wall, be that a window or a door or some kind of opening that you've added in. So you can control how you want those openings to be added in, and you'll see a dimension string running from either the center or the actual opening, and that'll be controlled later on. You can also add in, if your municipality or your region requires you to show interior walls where they're placed on your exterior dimension strings, you can select the interior walls option. And what this will do is it will add in a dimension line denoting where an interior wall is on your exterior dimension string. And when you select the interior option, the interior walls portion down here will highlight, and it will allow you to define what part of that interior wall do you want to show. Is it going to be from the leading and trailing edge of the surface? Or is it just going to be to the leading and trailing edge of the core? Or is it going to be to the center of the wall? If it's to the center of the wall, it will just show just a single dimension line right to the center of the wall. If you use the leading or trailing surface options, you'll see two additional lines that show up. So again, you can control how you want that to be displayed. We also have an angled walls option. So if you had an angled wall on your design and it was drawn off on an angle, the dimension string, if angled walls was unchecked, would show up a dimension running horizontally across the screen. If I had angled walls selected, it would follow the angle of the wall, and I would see my dimension string along that angled wall. So again, if you know your design is going to have angles in it, then you'll probably want to make sure that you have angled walls selected in here. The next option that we see is dimension line distances. And this is a control that specifies the actual spacing or the offsets that these dimension lines are going to have from your model. So if we take a look at our little diagram here, the very first offset is going to be set up to be 4 feet from our model. So if you know that you're going to have, pardon me, if you know that you're going to have a tight drawing area because you're inserting on a smaller sheet, then you may want to adjust the dimension offsets here to be a little bit smaller so that your dimension lines are moved in a little bit closer to your model. By default, we have these set up to be 4 feet. So that very first offset is going to be 4 feet away from our design. Any subsequent dimension line, so be that our openings or our projections, are going to be set up to be 2 feet from that line. So everything else will be 2 feet from that edge. I'm just going to pause here for just 1 second. Just pardon me 1 second here. Someone's got a question. And okay. Okay. And so anything that is now after that first offset is going to be 2 feet away from that first initial offset that we have added in. Again, you can control this. If you feel that you need a little bit more space, you can add to that dimension, or you can subtract from it to again suit what you feel is going to be desirable for your design. Next is extension lines, and this is how the dimension lines are going to be displayed on your model. So typically in North America, we have our extension lines going right to the corners of our model. So any projection, any opening, everything will go right to the corner with a little bit of an offset from that corner. In Australia and Asia, you will see dimension lines that terminate in a straight line. So you do have that option. If it is an office standard that you take advantage of, you can choose either one of those options here. As I mentioned earlier, when you're talking about openings, you can define how you want your openings to be displayed on your dimension strings. So are you dimensioning to the center of the opening or to the actual opening edges themselves? We're going to use to this the center of our openings here, so I'm going to change mine to be center of opening. Again, whatever your office standards are, you can set this up to again reflect what is going to be needed in your office. You'll also notice that we have an option here called separation. And you may be asking, well, what is this for? Well, if I wanted to, I could add in the opening height after the width of my dimension. So if I'm taking a look at this option here, which is a window out the front, if my dimension string ran from here and it went to the edges of that opening, it would show up as a 3'6" opening. I could then have a separator with the times option or by option, and it would then show the height of that window. And I believe that says 5 feet. So I would then see a 3'6" by 5 foot in my dimension string. I can also change that to be a /, a dash, or I can have it set to multi-line. So it'll show the 3'6" over 5 foot. We're not going to worry about that in our design, so we're just going to uncheck that. Again, we're going to set ours to be center on opening. Next is the end condition, and this is what you're actually dimensioning to. For our model, we're going to go right to the surface, but you can change this again depending on what you need for your region and what you're actually dimensioning to. Some people just like to dimension right to the core. They don't care about the veneer. They just want to go right to the framing. So you can change that to be to the core itself. Or maybe you just want to go to the center of the core or to the interior of the core or just to the interior surface. Any one of those options are available to you. Again, it's going to be more reflective of what is going to be what is going to be more reflective is what your office standards are and what the design calls for. And again, we're just going to use to the surface right to the edge of the surfaces. We also have a dimension auto interior. So when you're dimensioning your interior of your model, you're going to run a line through your design. And when you run that line through the design, it's going to automatically dimension each room for you. And it's going to dimension it to the settings that you have defined here. So it's going to go from the leading edge to the trailing edge, or from the leading edge of the core to the trailing edge of the core, or to the center of the core itself. There is also an option called Ignore Wall Dimensions. And this option, what it will do is when I run my dimension line through my walls, it will automatically dimension the wall that is on the interior as well. So I will see that dimension through the wall. I may not want that dimension to show up in my design. So I would check this Ignore Wall Dimensions option to get rid of that interior dimension of that interior wall. I'm going to select Apply and then OK. So now that we have our dimensions set up for our exterior and our interior dimension strings, I'm now going to go in and I'm going to add in my dimensions. So first I'm going to go up to Tools, Dimensions, and I'm going to select Auto Exterior Dimensions. So based on the settings that we just defined, as soon as I click on this Auto Exterior Dimensions tool, it's going to automatically dimension my entire exterior model for me. So again, I'll see all of my dimensions from the exterior to exterior. I'll see my projections and then the dimension to my openings. And it will do that all the way around my design. If I want to add in my auto interior dimensions, I'm going to go up to Tools, Dimensions, and I'm going to select the Auto Interior Dimension tool. So again, this one isn't as automatic. It's not just a matter of selecting the tool or selecting the command and the tool automatically adds in all my interior dimensions. I have to define where I want these dimension strings to go. So I'm going to move my cursor, and I always move to the exterior side of my model. And in this case, I'm going to go right to the exterior side on this side of my model. You may notice that I'm zooming in and out. You can zoom in and out in a couple of ways in Envisioneer. You can use the zoom and navigate control toolbar down here to zoom in and out using the magnifying glasses, plus or minus. You can use a window option to zoom in and out. You can zoom to fit to bring everything back to the original state so you can see everything. Or you can use the flywheel on your mouse. Basically, wherever your cursor is, when you push the flywheel forward, it will zoom in. When you pull the flywheel back, it will zoom out. So I'm just going to zoom in on this area, and I'm going to select my first point on the exterior, left click once, move my mouse all the way through, and I'm going to left click again to add in that dimension string. I'm going to do this one more time. I'm going to go from here all the way through, and again, left clicking, and I'm going to add in another string from here to here. These dimensions can be modified. So I can take a dimension and say, well, I don't want that dimension. I do want to take this dimension, and it's kind of interfering with this dimension string. So I want to move this one. So I'm going to go right click, move, and I'm just going to move this over so it doesn't interfere with that one dimension line that we have in there. But I do want to keep my dimensions lined up. So I'm going to select this dimension. I'm going to go right click, align, and then I'm going to click on this dimension. And it will automatically align those two dimension strings up for me so that they stay in line. I can also use some other commands for dimension strings. So maybe I want this dimension string and this dimension string to be joined together. If you notice, when I tried to select this dimension string, it automatically selected the stair. So in Envisioneer, we're working in a 3D model environment. And in that 3D model environment, I'm able to select something, and it's going to select the highest element in that design. So here, the stairs are sitting above the dimension string. So I can either go in and select the view filter option, view filter, and I can simply just turn the selectability of stairs off, and that will turn off the stairs and I'll be able to select my dimension. Or I can use a tool called cycle select, and I can cycle through to the next element. So if I left click once here, it selects my stair. If I then hold my shift key down on my keyboard and I push the flywheel forward once, it will now cycle to the next element that's in that area, and that's going to be my dimension string. So I now have that dimension string selected. I'm going to select this dimension string. So I'm going to hold my shift key down, and I'm going to multiple select the next dimension, and then I'm going to right click. I'm going to select this dimension string. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to select join. And then I'm going to select the next dimension, and it will automatically join those two dimension strings together for me. So now I'm getting the actual width of that hallway. I can also split a dimension. So maybe I just want that dimension to go right to this core of the, to the surface of this interior wall. So I can right click and say cancel to finish that command. I can select that dimension, right click, and say split. I can then click on that corner, and it will then split that dimension for me based on that point. So again, a couple of more tools just to allow you to edit dimensions and how you want them to be displayed. So next, let's look at adding in some room text. And we're going to do this in a couple of different ways. So the first way, we're going to go up to Tools, Dimensions, and we're going to select the Room Dimensions option. So again, Tools, Dimensions, Room Dimensions. I want to point out that when you select a command and it's maybe a new command to you, take advantage of the commander in the bottom left-hand corner. It will actually tell you what to do. So it's actually telling me to pick my first corner of the room that I want to dimension. And we're going to dimension this room down here. I'm going to zoom in on this, and I'm going to make this first corner my first point. So I'm going to left click once in the corner of that room. It's then asking me to indicate the width of the room. So I'm going to move my cursor over to the right, and I'm going to left click again to specify the next point. The commander is now asking me, will indicate the length of the room. So now I'm going to move my cursor up to define the length of that room, and I'm going to left click on that corner. And we will then get the room dimensions dialog box. And in here, it's going to show us the actual distance of that room. And it's showing us the width by the length. We can also change that to be length by width. And we can also change the dimension style to be a completely different dimension style. So we're seeing a different text style for that dimension. I'm going to leave mine as is. And I'm going to simply say, OK. I'm going to right click and select finish because it is a continuous command. And this dimension can be moved around. So right now it's interfering with our room dimension here. I'm just going to move that up so that it sits above that line. So that is the room dimension tool. Like I mentioned, we're going to do a couple of different options. I'm going to zoom in to this top corner, and this is going to be our dining room. And in this area, I want this to use a room region. So I want this to show the name of the room, as well as a couple of other information tidbits for that particular room. So I'm going to go up to Tools. I'm going to go to Analyze. I'm going to come down to Schedules. And under Schedules, I'm going to see an option called Room Region by Room. And I'm going to left click on that once. In here, it's going to get, in the Room Region dialog box, we're going to see a General tab. And underneath this General tab, we're going to be able to display the name that we want to define for this room. I want to call this Dining Room, and I'm going to spell that right. So we're going to go Dining Room. And I can also control what I want to display as well as the name. So here I'm going to be able to see that the display area is going to be calculated, the display perimeter option, and the display volume option are all selected. I can turn any one of these options off. If I'm going to show the volume, I need to make sure that I include the height for that particular room. This would again be used for air calculations for HVAC. So if you want to show that value, you can keep that value in here to show the volume of the rooms as well. I'm just going to turn off the perimeter option, and I'm going to leave everything else as is. We do have the ability to insert a room finish schedule. So when you add in a room region, there is an option down here for an additional schedule field for adding in finishes. So I can simply come in here and I can type in hardwood floor. I can say I want my ceiling finish to be, we're just going to say, Benjamin Moore, and then we'll have a number of, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4. Our wall finish is going to be Benjamin Moore, and it will be a finish of 2, 5, let's go 6, 7. And our base finish will also be a Benjamin Moore paint color, and we'll give that a finish of what the same color as our ceiling. So we'll just go 1, 2, 3, 4. We can also add in any kind of a reference note. So any kind of notes that we want to add in about this room, you can add that in here. So you want to say coffered ceiling, tray ceiling, cathedral ceiling, something along those lines just to point out as a reference note. Once you have that all set up, I do want to point out that the dining room name is going to be controlled and set up to be center justified. So when I place this in, it's going to be centered within that room, and the text is going to follow that center justification. I also have a settings option, and this just controls how everything is going to look. So what text style I'm going to be using for my name and my marks, and how that's going to be added in. The calculation appearance is going to be using the marks text style, so it'll be a little bit smaller than our notes. So if we take a look at that and we look at the size of our notes, we're looking at a note size of 1/4 inch. It's going to use the Envisioneer hand font, and it's going to use the regular font style. I'm going to say cancel to that and cancel to that. If we look at our marks and I double click on that, it's going to be at a 1/16 of an inch, and it's going to be using the Envisioneer hand font, again regular and black. I want to point out that this value that we're seeing here is actual size. So if I was to print this out, no matter what the scale of my drawing is, if it's 1/4 inch, 3/16 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch, 1/2 an inch, no matter what the scale of the drawing is, the text will always be a 1/16 of an inch. That will never change. And that is done by default, that is by design, because that is the way it is supposed to be. If you were hand drawing anything and you drew out your plan and you added text to it, the text would always be the same size no matter what the scale of the drawing was. So when you see this value, it's not a scalable value. That is the size of the text in relation to the view that you're adding it into. So it'll always be at that 1/16 of an inch. And when we looked at our, cancel out of there, when we looked at our notes, it will always be 1/4 of an inch. We're going to say OK. And you'll notice that now my cursor looks like the little crosshair with the pencil sign, and it's just telling me, well, what room do we want this to be added into? And as you can see, as I move my cursor around, the rooms highlight in blue. So it's telling me what that room is going to be, or what room region that room is going to be added into. And I'm just going to left click once in the middle of that room, and it now adds in that dining room designation. I can simply say cancel because this is a continuous command, so I can continually add in room regions if I wanted to. I'm just going to click cancel because I'm done adding that in. You'll notice that I can select that room region, but I can't really do much editing to the placement of it. So the text will always be in the center unless I change the justification to be left or right, but it won't move. I can't move the actual text anywhere. I can still edit it, so I can still go back in and say right-click Properties, and I can go in and say, well, the text seems to be a little bit large, so let's change that from Notes, and we'll just go to Dimensions. And if we look at the dimension size, it's 1/8 of an inch, so we can change that to be a little bit smaller, and it will adjust the actual size of the text for the dining room. The next way to add in text is to just add in text. So we can just go up to Tools and select the Text option. And under the Text option, we're just going to select the Text selection here, and it will bring up the text dialog box. Now, I do want to point out that I don't add a lot of text in my model. I will add in my room names in my model view, but for notes or things like that, that type of text I usually do on my working drawing sheets. I don't want to do all of that in my model view, and I'll point that out in a little bit as to why I take advantage of the text in the model or in the worksheet for adding in notes and things of that nature. But for adding in room names, this is a perfect way of doing it. It's very quick. It's a continuous command, and you can quickly add in your different room names for your different rooms. So we have a predefined list over here on the right-hand side that allow us to quickly add in predefined text. And we also have a justification options here, so you can justify, center justified, left or right justification for how you want that text to be inserted. I'm going to change mine to be center justified. I'm going to select kitchen, and you can either double click on it or you can click the green arrow to load it in, and it will load in that text, and it will use the dimensions text style. which again is what we used for our room region. So it'll be consistent. And I'm going to make sure I select multiple text insert because I want to insert text in multiple rooms. So now I'm just going to say OK. I'm going to bring my cursor into the drawing area, and I can left click to place the word kitchen into my design. And again, it will continually allow me to add in additional text. So if I want to add in the word foyer, I would just click on that, say OK, zoom out, drop in the word foyer. Let's add in the name den. And just to show you can double click, it will automatically adjust to den. Say OK, we'll drop the word den in. And you can continually go on and add in each of these rooms. So we're just going to go living room, load it in, say OK, and we'll drop in the living room option. And we'll do one more, we'll do dining room, load it in, say OK, and we already did dining room, sorry. And we'll just say finish. So now we're done with our text and adding in our text, but we can also get really precise on how we want things to be lined up. So I like to make sure that my text is in line with the other text in any kind of an adjacent room. So I can take this and I can actually move this over, find that snap point, and you can see that dotted line that shows up. That's letting me know that that is now in line with the text from the other room. And I can see that lining up, and then I can just let go of my mouse to keep all my text in line with the other rooms. Just a nice way to keep your text added in and in line with everything else. The next thing I want to take advantage of is adding in sections. So sections have to be defined in the model view. If you go down to the toolbar at the bottom here, you can see sections. When you click on it, there are no sections defined because we don't know where you're drawing your model. So once you've defined your model, you've placed it in your drawing area, you then have to define where you want your section markers to go. So I'm going to select my create new section, and it will now allow me to pick a couple of points on where I want this section to go. So right now I have my first option is to select my first point of selection for that section. I like to bring my cursor out past my dimension strings. If I moved it inside, it would interfere with my dimension lines. So I like to move it towards the exterior. And then I just simply left click once. This line that we're creating right now is the cut line. So this is where the model will be cut. And then we're going to define our second point. So our second point of the section line, again, towards the exterior, past our dimension lines, and we simply left click again. That defines our cut line. Now when I move my cursor, it's asking me to define which way do I want to look in this design. So this is considered your back clipping distance. So how far back in the model do you want to go, do you want to see? If I only went to here, then I would only see up to that line. So I wouldn't see the cabinets or the sink or the back wall in my section view. So again, bring your cursor all the way out to the exterior. Once you're past your exterior wall, left click again to define that back clipping distance. And you'll now see the elevation of the section of your model. On the right-hand side, you're going to see the section properties. And under the section properties, you're going to see the option to change the name. So if you're going to add in multiple sections and you want to know exactly what section it is that you're working with, you can adjust the section name, and you can also adjust the mark text in that particular section. Again, you can adjust the text style, which we're using as the dimension text style. And then over here is a little preview area. And again, you can zoom in and out using your flywheel or using the zoom and navigate tools here to zoom in and out. But this is essentially showing you where that section sits in your model. And if I zoom in and I move this, it will actually move that model, or that it will actually move that section marker in the model for us, and it will update automatically. So we'll see the difference in our sections as we move it. So again, just move it to where you want, have it added in, change any of the naming conventions that you want. I'm going to leave mine as section 1. I'm going to make sure it says A1, and then I'm just going to close the properties. I'm going to go back into 2D, so just select the 2D option, and we're going to add in another section line. So again, we're going to go down to our section button, and we're going to go and select Create New Section. Again, I'm going to zoom into my model. I'm going to move my cursor out past my dimension string, left-clicking once, dragging my mouse all the way through, again, past my exterior dimension string. I'm cutting through my stairs, through my front door. I'm going to left-click again, and then creating my back clipping distance. I want to go past my exterior wall, and I'm going to left-click again to drop that in. And we're now going to see a new section. And we're going to see section 2, and the mark text automatically updates to show A2. So we'll now, in our plan view, very clearly see the difference between the two sections as A1 and A2. I'm going to simply click on 2D to go back into our 2D plan view. So that takes care of the options working in our model view before we start moving into our working drawing sheets. So I'm going to open up the question section here to see if there's any questions about anything that we've looked at so far. So let's just open up the questions here. So are room dimensions to the drywall or to the core? Great question. That depends on where you select. So in this case, when I use these room dimension tool, I was snapping to the actual drywall surface. So if I change that, if I go up to tools, dimensions, and I say room dimensions, and let's do it for this room, when I zoom in, I can snap to the drywall or I can snap to the core. And it will snap to the core of my wall now, and I will see the dimensions to the actual core. So depending on what part of the model you select, that is what will be dimensioned to, or where those dimensions are being taken from. Okay? Again, I'll just pause here to see if there's any other questions about anything that we are talking about up to this point. So again, this is just what we've worked on in our model view to get ready to bring everything over to our sheets. All right, so there doesn't appear to be any other questions. So next we're going to move into our working drawing sheets. So in the model view, you're creating an actual 3D model, and you're working with actual elements that have heights, and they have elements, they have properties assigned to them. When you move over to your working drawing sheets, you're now working in a document environment. So everything that you're going to be working with is now going to be lines. You're going to see the individual lines that make up those elements, and it's just going to be in a flat 2D environment. You're also going to notice that the interface changes quite a bit. So no longer are we seeing our building tabs, our interiors tabs. We're now seeing insert, where we're able to add in our smart views. We're now seeing a draw tab where we're able to add in lines, circles, arcs, ellipses, hatch patterns. Under modify, we're going to be able to delete, move, and explode certain things. And under tools, we're going to be able to add in text and dimensions and any other subsequent, any kind of editing of those dimensions that we've added in will all be taken advantage of in here. So again, everything changes a little bit in the interface, but again, we're now working with a 2D or a 2D document, no longer working with a 3D model. The other thing I want to point out is when you add in, or when you come into a working drawing environment, we are working with what is defined in our template. So when you started your new drawing, you selected a template. And at the end of the class, I'm going to go through and talk about creating your own templates. So you can add in your own company information in your title blocks, setting up a drawing so that it uses the information that's going to be more relevant to you for your region. So we'll talk about that in a bit, but I'm going to show you how to edit the title blocks now so you have that knowledge going forward. So Based on the template that you select, the title block information will be already added in for you. And you'll also see all of the different sheets that are defined for that particular template. In here, we have a title block that's added in. And when I select it, it is just a solid block. We can see that the block name is a title block 24 by 36. So when we print this drawing out, we're printing out as an Arch D size sheet, a 24 by 36 size sheet. If you're going to be printing out at 11 by 17 or 18 by 24 or whatever size sheet that you need, you're going to want to make sure your title block is to that size as well. And again, I'll show you how to do that in a little bit later, but I just want to point it out that right now we're working with a 24 by 36 size title block. But this title block has a lot of information attached to it, and it's attached in a couple of different ways. So if I look at this title block, and I'm just going to move my GoToMeeting panel here for a second. When I look at this title block, I can see some information added in here. I can see that the project name is called New Project, and it has an address of 123 Main Street in a city. The client is Mr. Jones. It has a drawing name of floor plan. It has a set scale and a date. It also has a sheet number. So all these values are a part of that title block, but they are added in a different manner for each of those. So if I simply click the edit definition, what I've done now is I'm now inside the definition of that block. I'm now inside, I can see the individual lines, I can move lines around, I can adjust certain elements within this title block. So if I want to change the look of this title block for my template, then I can start moving things around. So maybe I want a line here. I'm going to take this line that I have selected, I'm going to go right click, duplicate. I'm going to specify this point, and I'm just going to duplicate it over to here. And it now closes off that line for me. So I now have a new line added in to that title block. Maybe I want to move the revisions up to the top and I want to move general notes down. I can move all of that information by just simply selecting the individual lines that make up that title block. The text that is in here is one of the things that I wanted to focus on. So you're going to see text in three different ways in this title block. So first we're going to see just normal text. This is just text that's going to be the same on every single sheet. So general notes will be the same on every sheet. The orientation, the stamp, this blurb that we have in here will all be the same on every single sheet. The date will also be the same on every single sheet. So I do want to edit the date here. So I can select the date, I can click on contents, and I can see the different information assigned for that particular text. I can see that it's using the Envisioneer hand font text style. I can see it has a height of 1/8 of an inch. And again, it will be 1/8 of an inch no matter what size I scale this drawing to. It will always be 1/8 of an inch. I'm using the color of black. The background is transparent. And then I see contents. So I'm just going to click on this to edit the contents. And we're no longer in July, so I'm going to change the date here to be October. I'm going to go cap locks, and I'm just going to do October 2022. I'm going to say OK. That changes the text, and that will change the text on every single one of my drawing sheets, because that is a value that is going to be consistent through each of my drawing sheets. You'll notice that some of these have different information assigned to them. So the company name, the logo, these are again things that are going to be the same on every single sheet. So I want to make sure that I change this to be your company address. So you would just go in and say your company, if I can spell, your company address, and then your city and your zip or postal code. And then you would, when you say OK to that, it will update. So you would have your company address, your city, your zip code. The logo, again, I would recommend changing it from the CADSoft logo. You can delete it out and you can add in your own company logo in there. And that's just by adding in an image file. So you can actually select a file. I don't have a logo to add in here, so I'm going to leave mine blank. But if you have your company logo, you simply just select the option for insert of the image. I do recommend dimensioning this out so you know how big to make it. So if you type in DI on your keyboard, you can bring up the distance tool, or you can just go to tools and you can use the measure tool here, and you can go measure, and you can see, okay, so from that side to that side is about 15 feet, and down is about 4'6". So I probably want to make the title block, or sorry, the logo probably about 12 feet, maybe 13 feet by maybe 4 foot or 3'6". So that way, when you insert that, it's going to fit within that area. So you can define the actual heights of the image that you're going to add in. I mean, I can add in an image file here. I don't think I have anything. Let's go into documents on my D drive, go documents, 16 projects, and let's just add in an image file here. So I'll just grab nursery and I'll bring this in. I don't want it to be dim, so I'm going to make sure that the dimming is set correctly. I do want to adjust the width and the height. So again, like I said, I need this to be a certain height. So I'm going to say 4 feet, and it will automatically adjust the width for me. And then I can just simply say insert. And now attached to my cursor is going to be that image file, and I can add it in. So you can see how you can add in your own images to create the look that you're after, or the company logo that you want to add in there. The other areas that we're looking at have different characters in front of them. And this one is in relation to what we call the project manager. These other ones are actually going to be attributes. So I'm just going to hit escape on my keyboard real quick. Whenever you hit escape, you're now exiting out of the definition and you're now back into the actual sheet itself. So you're no longer inside the block or inside that title block. You're now back into your drawing area. If I go up to File and I select Project Manager, you're going to notice that some of the things that we have in here line up with what we have in our title block. So again, File, Project Manager. And if we look here, we can see, oh, new project. So that's where that's coming from. So I can actually change the name in here, and I'm just going to call this webinar. And I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say, I'll leave the contact as Mr. Jones, but we'll change the address to be 123 Fake Street. And the city is going to be, let's just go into, we'll say Newtown. And you can add in other information as well, but those are the values that we have defined right now. And we're just going to change that and we'll say, okay. So now everything changes on that drawing sheet. And that will change for every single sheet. So this information is going to be information that is project specific. So where the project is, who the project is for, that information will be consistent through each of our drawing sheets based on the project we're working on. The next information that we're looking at, if I go in and I say edit definition, this information is going to change per sheet. So the drawing name, the scale, the page number will change per sheet. So if I hit escape again and I look at my title block, when I click on it, on the right hand side under object properties, I have an attributes option. And when I click on edit attributes, these are the information, or this is the information that is going to change again based on the sheet. So again, I'm going to see A1, I'm going to see floor plan, and I'm going to see drawing subname. And I'm going to change the drawing subname on here to also show roof plan because I want both of those on this sheet. So I'm going to say OK. So now what's happened is I'm now seeing floor plan and roof plan. A1 1/4 inch is equal to a foot. I'm seeing the October 2022. We've changed it to be company name with your company address, all that information. But when I switch over to another drawing sheet, you'll notice that the title block has changed. I'm seeing the correct information. I'm seeing the project name because it's again a part of the project, but the drawing and the scale and the sheet number are dependent on that particular sheet view that we're working with. So I would again be able to select that title block on that sheet and adjust the attributes for that particular sheet. These title blocks are already a part of the Envisioneer, so these title blocks are already here. If you go up and you select the blocks option and you say insert block, we have these title blocks in here as 11 by 17, 18 by 24, 24 by 36. So you have each of these already added in to that particular template, and it has all of that same information just in a smaller size. So you can use any one of those depending on the size of sheet that you need to be working with. So if you know you're going to be working with an 11 by 17 title block, you can import that title block, say okay, drop it in, and it will now have that information. And again, we'll talk about this a little bit more when we're creating our templates, but I wanted to show you that that value or that option is there as well. And again, that was under the insert and insert blocks option, and you can insert a block because it is already a part of that particular file. So I do see a question, so I'm just going to pause here for a second just to see what the question is. And I'm just going to open that up. Yes, so if your audio is cutting in and out for you, I know you're having issues at the beginning of the class. We are recording it, so you will be getting a video, so you should have all the audio available to you in that video, so you should be okay there. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my floor plan sheet, and now that we've adjusted our title block, we've gone through and edited the attributes for the title block, we can see how that title block changes per sheet based on the information that we edit for those attributes. We're now going to start to go through and we're going to start inserting our smart views. So I'm going to pause here for a second to see if there's any questions about the worksheet interface, editing of title blocks, or anything like that. And again, I'll just pause here for just a second just to see if anybody is adding anything in. All right, perfect. So we're now going to go through and we're going to start to add in our working drawing sheets. So to add in our working drawing sheets, I'm just going to zoom out. So I'm going to make sure I zoom to fit to make sure that everything is visible within our drawing area. Again, this drawing area, we are able to control our layers, and our zoom and navigate tools are going to look a little bit different in our worksheet environment because we are working in a 2D environment. So you're going to see you're zooming in, zooming out, same as you would in model view, but you're not going to see the 3D options in here. You're only going to see the 2D navigate tools. So we want to insert our actual smart views. And one other thing I want to point out is the cursor. You may notice that the cursor looks a little bit different in our sheets. Since we're no longer just selecting elements, we're now working with actual lines, we're going to see our cursor as a crosshair. And this will help us line things up and adjust things so that everything stays in line, because we have our crosshair that runs the entire length and width of our screen. So to insert a smart view, we're going to go to the Insert tab, and we're going to drop down, and we're going to select the drop down under Smart Views, and we're going to select Define Smart View. This will bring up the Insert Smart View, or sorry, this will bring up the Insert View dialog box, pardon me. And in here, the first thing you're going to see is name. I do recommend changing the name. We give it default names, and they will then go in a numerical order. So you'll see 2D plan, and then you'll see 2D plan 1, 2D plan 2. It's not very descriptive as to what the view is that you're adding in. And it will become more important later on if you add in multiple views. You may want to adjust certain things, and you may want to know what that view actually is. So I recommend changing the name to be more descriptive of the view you're adding in. So in this case, we're going to be adding in our 2D floor plan. So I'm going to change this to just be 2D, and I'm going to type in, turning off cap locks, I'm going to type in 2D floor plan. You're also going to notice that we have a couple of different tabs, and these tabs are going to correspond to what type of view you want to insert. So we can add in a 2D plan view, we can add in a 3D view, which will be an image file. As you can see here, it'll always be an image. We can add in a quick view, again, depending on the view that you want to insert. We can add in our elevation views or our section views. We're going to add in our 2D plan view to start. So again, we're going to make sure we're selecting the 2D option for our 2D plan. And then it's going to ask you to define the location that you want to insert. And again, this is going to be based on your building locations. So whatever you have in your building locations in the model view, you'll also have in this drop-down list. So we want to insert our ground floor. So we're going to make sure ours is set to ground floor. Next, we have properties. And under the properties panel, we can go through and we can see what scale we want to insert for our drawing file. In this case, we want to be inserting at a 1/4 inch scale. So I'm going to make sure that my ground floor plan is going to be at a 1/4 inch scale. And then you're also going to notice down here at the bottom, we have an insertion option of image and drawing. So again, depending on what you're trying to insert, if it's a 3D image of a render, it will always be an image. But if you're inserting a plan view, you have the option of inserting it as an image or DWG, or sorry, as a drawing file. I always say recommend that you insert it as a drawing. The drawing file will be the actual lines of the model itself. An image will be a screen capture, an image. It won't be to scale. It'll be very pixelated as it's just a raster image. So again, when you're inserting your plan views, make sure it is set to drawing. Next, I want to look at the different options along the bottom here. So here we have, again, our zoom and navigate tools. What you see is what you get in this dialog. So when I have my view in here, whatever I have, so if I have my drawing off into this corner like this, if I was to insert this, this is what I would see. So you want to make sure that you are centered in the drawing area and you have everything turned on that you want to see. So in this case, I have a bunch of miscellaneous items that I really don't need to see for my floor plan. So I'm going to use my view filter dialog box to isolate what I want to see for my floor plan. So here we can see that the first tab is elements on location. So this is everything on the model on every location that we've added in. So foundation, ground floor, and second floor. I only want to see the elements on the ground floor. So I'm going to come over here to all locations and I'm going to uncheck all locations. I am then going to select the foundation option and I'm going to select the display none. I'm going to select the second floor option and I'm going to select display none. So I'm basically turning everything off on the other locations, leaving just the ground floor with elements visible. On the ground floor, I also want to turn certain things on and off. I don't want to see the ceilings, the floors, or the roof on this floor plan. So I'm going to turn all of those options off. And I'm just turning them off by closing the eye next to the element itself. And again, it will just turn that visibility of those elements off. On elements on terrain, I don't want to see certain elements on the terrain in this particular case because I'm going to add a site plan later. So I'm going to get rid of site data and I don't want to see the actual terrain. I don't want to see that green line. That is just the drawing area, the terrain. So we're going to turn that off. On notation, I can turn certain elements off on here as well. So I can turn the dimension or the text off. Maybe I don't want to see the text in my drawing area, so I would turn it off here. I'm going to leave mine on, but you can turn it off. And then under viewing aids, you can control what you want to see here. So do we want to see the elevation marks? No, I don't really need to show where the elevation marks are, but I do want to show where the section marks are. So I'm going to leave the section marks on. I'm going to go back to elements on location. Once you have everything defined the way that you want, you can simply select OK. And now everything turns off that isn't what you want to see. Again, what you see is what you get in this drawing area. So you want to make sure that you zoom in or out of that area so that you can see everything in the view, but still close to the edges. So again, you can use either the zoom and navigate tools here, or you can use the flywheel on your mouse to zoom in and out. Pressing the flywheel down will activate the pan command. So everything is visible where I want it, so everything looks good. I have it set to be the 2D floor plan. It's set to ground floor at a 1/4 inch scale. I have it set as a drawing. I've isolated the elements that I want to see, and I can now simply select Insert. And now attached to my cursor is that floor plan, and I can drop that floor plan into my design. Let's add in another smart view. So we're going to go back up and we're going to select the Define Smart View. We're going to see the Insert Smart View dialog box. This time we're going to add in a roof plan at an 1/8 inch scale. So again, we still want to be on the ground floor. We're inserting a 2D plan, but I want this to, instead of being 2D plan, I want this to be 2D roof plan. We're going to change the scale for this one to be 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to change the scale to be 1/8 of an inch. I again want this to be set as a drawing, but I really want to strip out everything out of this model except for the roof. So I'm going to go into my view filter once again. I'm going to go in and on elements on location, I'm just going to say display all. Sorry, display none. And elements on terrain, display none. Notation, display none. Viewing aids, display none. So right now, if I was to insert this, we would see absolutely nothing. It would be a blank view. But I do want to turn certain elements on. And I have roofs on multiple locations. I have a roof on the ground floor and a roof on the second floor. So I don't need to uncheck all locations. I can leave that selected. I'm just going to open up the plus sign beside roofs, and I'm just going to open the eye beside roof surfaces. So now I'm just turning on the roof surfaces for both the ground floor and the second floor. And then I'm just going to say OK. And now I'm going to see the floor plan of that roof. It might be hard to see, but if I zoom in, you can see the faint dotted line of the roof of the second floor is actually visible. Again, what you see is what you get. So you want to make sure that the view is fully within that area. So again, use the flywheel on your mouse or the zoom and navigate tools to center the view, making sure everything is visible, making sure it's a drawing at an 1/8 inch scale, say Insert. And now attached to our cursor is that roof plan, and we're going to drop that one in up here in this top corner right there. So we now see our roof plan. Let's do one more insertion of a smart view, and this time we're going to insert our second floor. So we're going to go up and we're going to select the second floor. We are going to, again, change the name because we're now going to be second floor plan. So I want to change that to be 2D, and we're going to go second floor plan. And we are going to change the location to be second floor. We're again going to change the scale on this one. I want this one to be 3/16 of an inch. I want it to be a drawing. I do want to isolate certain elements, so I'm going to go into the view filter and I'm going to uncheck all locations, and I'm going to turn off the display of the foundation and the display of the ground floor. I will turn on the stairs for the ground floor. So what this will do is stairs will only be visible on the location that they are inserted on. So when I'm inserting a second floor plan and I have a set of stairs going up from the ground floor to the second floor, I do want to see that stair in my plan view. So I won't see it on the second floor because the stair wasn't inserted on the second floor. It was inserted on the ground floor. So I would make sure that I uncheck the all locations, turn off everything on the ground floor except for the stairs. Then on the second floor, I would again turn off the visibility of ceilings, floors, and roofs because I've already added the roof plan in. I don't need to see that. And then I can simply go in to the elements on terrain. I don't need to see the terrain on the second floor. Notation, I haven't added anything in here, so we're going to update our smart views in a minute, but I wanted to show that as an update for you. And then we're going to go to the viewing aids tab, and I don't need to see the section marks on the second floor. So I'm going to turn section marks off, and we're going to say OK. So now we see just our floor plan here, and I'm going to zoom in, leaving some room for our dimensions. So I'm going to make sure I don't zoom out too far or zoom in too close. And then again, second floor, 3/16 of an inch, set as a drawing, set our view filter up. I'm going to say insert, and I'm going to place that right here in this bottom corner. Again, I'm going to leave some space for my dimensions. So that brings up the question of, so if I make an adjustment to my model, how can I make the changes in my working drawing sheets? So if I go back to model, and as you saw, we forgot to add dimensions to our second floor. So I'm going to change my location to be second floor. So down in the lower bottom corner, I'm just going to change location to be second floor. I'm going to go up to tools, dimensions, auto exterior, and it will automatically place all my dimensions on the second floor. I can add in interior dimensions if I want to, and then I'm just going to go back into my floor plan. So I've now added in the dimensions on the model. The model has changed, but the view in my work and drawing sheets has not. So they won't automatically update. You actually have to update them yourself. And there's a couple of ways of doing that. There is the update option, so you can go into your smart views and you can say update smart view, or you can select the smart view and select update, or you can select the update smart views global. So if you've added in a change that's affected a lot of the elements in your drawing file, then you would want to use the update smart views global. So as an example of that, if we went back into model view and I went back down to ground floor and I added in a window in this back wall as an example. So let's just add in a 3 foot by 3'6" window, and I'm just going to say center on wall. I will add that in. I will need to update my dimensions. So I'm just going to go tools, dimensions, auto exterior. It will now update my dimension strings to show that new window. When I go back into my floor plan, I now have the ground floor plan that needs to be updated. I have the second floor plan that needs to be updated. So I would go up and I would select Update Smart Views Global. And this will then bring in a dialog that says Update Smart Views, and it's going to ask you, well, what do you want to update? So again, I told you making sure that you give descriptive names is important. This is one of the reasons why. So I can now very clearly see what each smart view is, and I can say, okay, I don't need to update the 2D roof plan because it doesn't show dimensions, it's not showing the windows. That one doesn't need to be updated, but the 2D floor plan on the ground floor does, and the 2D second floor plan does. So I'm going to make sure that those two options are selected, and I'm going to say update, and it will then automatically update both smart views for me, showing the new window with the new dimension string, and then on this drawing it'll show the new dimensions added in. So I'm going to pause there just to see if there's any questions about adding in floor plan smart views and updating those views. All right, so there doesn't appear to be any questions there. So we're going to move on to adding in elevations. So we're going to switch over to our elevations tab. So if you're following along, just simply click on the elevations tab and you'll see the new elevations working drawing sheet. Again, with our title block, it's going to be denoted as elevations. And we're just going to zoom out. Again, I'm just going to use the zoom extents option to bring everything within that view area. So adding in elevations is very similar to adding in your smart views for your floor plans. Once you've mastered the Define Smart View tool, this is going to be pretty easy for you because it's just a matter of now selecting the type of view that you want to add in. So we've already added in our 2D plan views. Now we want to add in our elevations. So I'm going to select the elevation tab. And when you select the elevation tab, you're going to see that the name automatically adjusts for you. And it's going to pull up the name of the elevation that you have defined in your model view. So by default, those views are named front, right, rear, and left elevation. So again, that's the names that you're going to see in this list. And again, you can choose the elevation that you want to insert by selecting the little drop down here. We're also able to control the scale of our elevations. This elevation we're going to insert at a 1/4 inch scale. So I'm going to make sure that it stays at a 1/4 inch. I also want to add in some datum lines. So right here it's saying general datum lines. Yes, I do want to insert datum lines. What do you want to show? I want to show the grade and I want to show the head heights in this particular design. If I scroll down, it's going to ask me, well, what do you want to show? Do you want to show the foundation, the ground floor, and the second floor? And as you can see, I have the ground floor and the second floor selected to show those datum lines. Underneath that, you're going to see settings. And underneath the settings option, you're going to be able to control how these datum lines are going to look. So right now, it's going to be on the general layer of CAD. Our data markers, or our data marks, sorry, are going to be blocks that we are using, and it's going to use a data block called data marker. And the data marker is simply just a circle with a crosshair through it with 2 adjacent corners hatched in a solid hatch. That's what we're denoting as our data marker, and it is already a part of the block, which is a part of the definition of Envisioneer. So it's already in there as a block for you. It's going to then ask you how you want your leader lines to run. So we want our position to be both how long do we want those to be, the color, the line type, and the line weight. So again, you can control all of this. We're going to make an adjustment here for the actual datum lines, how they run through the model. I don't want that to be a solid line. I want that to be a dashed line. I'm also going to control the actual description, so the actual elevation, so the elevation text. Where do I want that to be? Right now it's below right, and which is going to be on the right hand side below our actual description. I want to change that to be above left. So I will see my datum line as it runs through. I will see the text over on the right hand side giving me if it's the ground level or the head height. And then on the left-hand side, I will see the actual heights. I'm going to save all that. So I'm going to say apply and then OK. Once I have my datum line information set up, I do want to make sure it's set to a drawing, but I also want to go into my view filter and I need to start editing what I want to see. And this is important, especially for elevations. So in Envisioneer, when you are adding in an elevation view, the model itself contains a lot of information. So if you have plumbing fixtures added in, interior furniture added in, cabinetry, all kinds of interior stuff, when you do your elevations, Envisioneer is analyzing that entire model. So if you have all of that information still added in, it's going to take a little bit more time because it's got to go through and analyze all that and see if it needs to be included. So what we've done is under templates, there is an elevation option. And I highly recommend that you take advantage of this when adding in your elevations because it will speed up the insertion of your elevation views. So again, under template, just simply select elevation and then select apply. And it will automatically go through and turn off all of the interior elements that are not going to be needed because they're not going to be seen on your exterior elevation views. Once I have all of that turned on, I can go through and I can start turning off additional elements. So elements on terrain, I don't want to see the site boundaries. I'm going to leave the terrain on notation. I don't have any notation on my elevation views, so I don't need to worry about that. and then I just simply say, okay. Again, what you see is what you get. So make sure that the view that you're looking at has everything, pardon me, has everything visible. I did change my mind. I am going to turn off the terrain. So I'm going to go in and say turn off the terrain, and we're just going to say okay. So right now we're looking at an elevation view in a hidden line format. So if I look at this dialog right here, or this button here, it is called display mode. I'm going to click on that. When I click on that, it gives me the ability to change how I want that elevation to be displayed, in what mode. Do I want it to be wireframe, where I can see everything through the model, hidden line? Do I want that to be a rendered view, a rendered outline view, or a pattern view? And that's the option we're going to select. So I'm going to select pattern. When I select pattern, it's going to refer to our model, and in our model, we had our properties for our walls set up. And in the properties of our walls, we have hatch patterns assigned for specific elements. So roof is going to use a certain hatch pattern. Walls, if it's a siding wall, we'll use a horizontal siding hatch. Brick, we'll use a brick hatch. Stone walls, we'll use a stone hatch. Stucco walls, we'll use a sand hatch. So again, and so on. So you can control how that hatch pattern is going to be displayed in your sheet views in the model before you bring it over here. If everything is set up the way that you want, we are again going to use our datum lines. We've already set all that up. I have it set up in the view that I want. I have it at a 1/4 inch, front elevation set as a drawing. I'm just going to simply select insert. And now attached to my cursor is that elevation view. And you may have noticed how quickly that elevation view inserted. We're going to insert all of our elevations here, but the next one we're going to do is we're going to select our insert smart view, define smart view, and we're going to change to the elevation tab. We're going to go to the right elevation, and the right elevation, we are going to insert, and we're going to again go through, datum lines are all going to be the same. We're going to leave it at a 1/4 inch scale. I want that to be a drawing. Under my view filter, I do want to change the elevation, change it to be the elevation, making sure to select apply. And again, it will turn everything off for me. Under elements on terrain, we're going to turn off those options. We're going to say okay. And again, I'm just going to make sure that I can see the entire the entire elevation in this view. And I'm just going to pan it down. I'm going to leave this one as a hidden line, and we're going to hatch this one manually in a little bit, but I just wanted to show that. So again, we're going to leave that as is, and we're going to say insert. And now attached to my cursor is that elevation. And as you can see, I can try and use my my crosshair to line things up, and I can get it pretty close, but I can also use the actual snap tracking tool down here in my commander in the bottom right corner, and I can say I want to move this from this point, and I want to reference this point, and it will show me. I actually got that pretty dead on, so let's move that up, and we'll move this again, and I'll say I want to go from here, and I want to reference this point. So when I move my cursor, as soon as I get close, I'll see that circle with an X, and that's telling me that that is in perfect line with the elevation on the right. So when I look at this, everything will be in line in that model or on that sheet. So next, let's add in a different type of elevation view. So we're going to again select our define elevation. We're going to select the elevation option. We're going to change to the rear elevation. And this time, we're going to do something a little bit different. We are going to select underneath our view filter options. We're going to change the view filter. We're going to turn things off. Again, we don't want to see, we're going to go into elevation and apply. Terrain, we don't want to see that. Notation, there isn't anything. But here we want to change our display mode from a hidden line to, let's just say, a realistic mode. So now we're going to see the actual textures and shadows and the materials that are being used. you're going to notice that the drawing option is now disabled. I can't actually insert this as a drawing file because it is using actual images. So if I wanted to show like a sun study elevation where the shadows are affecting the scene, this is how I would add that in. And from here, again, you're going to zoom in so that everything is visible. Again, getting it as close as you can. And you can then simply select Insert. And now attached to your cursor is going to be that elevation view. And you can now move that in and move it around your drawing area, however you want that to fit into that view. You might need to scale it down because it is going to be a little bit big. You can go in and you can select under modify, you can select the scale option, so modify and scale. And I'm going to go in and I'm just going to specify 0.75, just reducing it by a little bit so that way it fits in here and it's not going to interfere with my elevation on this side of the screen. So I'm just going to again move this over just a little bit like so. And then we're going to insert one more elevation. So again, under Insert Smart Views, we're going to go back to our elevation. We're going to do our left elevation. Again, this time, again, Smart View, or sorry, View Filter, applying the elevation. And under Terrain, we're going to turn everything off, saying OK, making sure it's in the drawing area. I'm going to leave this at a 1/4 inch scale. And I'm going to change this one to be pattern mode as well. And we are now just going to simply select Insert, and we're going to drop that one in. And when we drop this one in, we can again use our snap tools and our snap track feature to move this so that it lines up perfectly with this edge of our design. And it will line up perfectly with that edge. So that's adding in our elevations. So the right elevation, we're going to edit it to have some hatch. So we added this in without a hatch option because maybe we feel that the hatch is a little bit too dominant on the screen. We only want to show hatch in certain areas, and it will denote that that entire area will be hatched. So you can go in and you can select the hatch option. So if I go up and I select under the Draw tab, I have the ability to add in a polygon hatch or the ability to add in a boundary hatch. I'm going to select the polygon hatch first, and it's going to ask me how do I want this polygon hatch to be added in. So the first option that we see here is boundary line. Do you want to include the boundary lines? So when I draw this out, it's going to include the lines that are a part of that boundary. Do I want that to be displayed? I'm going to check that off for right now. And then I'm going to select the hatch pattern that I want to use. So again, I want to include the hatch pattern. That's the whole reason we're here. So I'm going to go in and select the select option. And I'm just going to select the siding horizontal. And I'm going to select siding horizontal. I'm going to say OK. And then I'm going to click OK. And now I'm going to get the ability to specify where I want my points to go. So right now I'm locked in at 90-degree angles because I have my ortho command turned on. So I'm going to simply press F8 on my keyboard to turn ortho off. Pardon me. And by turning ortho off, I'm now able to draw at any angle that I want. And I'm just going to pick some points here to drop in a hatch pattern along our design, and then I can right click and select finish. And it will now add in a hatch pattern for that design. I can select that hatch pattern and let's say, oh, I changed my mind. I do want to include the boundary. So on the right hand side under object properties, I can select the include option and it will include the boundary line for that design. Again, you have the ability to turn that on or off. That is the polygon hatch option, and it's very handy if you just want to show just a small area of hatch that's going to be denoted for the entire wall. The other option is the boundary hatch, and the boundary hatch option, when you select it, it will bring up the boundary hatch dialog. And in here, if we move our cursor or move the dialog over, it's going to allow me to define the hatch that I want to use. And I've already have it selected, but I want to use the roof shingles. And I'm not going to adjust the scale or anything like that, but I do want to define the actual boundaries. And you're going to notice that there's two options in here. So there is a outer or an ignore option. The outer detection, what that does is it finds an area, and if it finds something that is an interference, it will go around it. So right now with the outer option in, it will go around this and it will add in a hatch around that area. If the ignore option was added in, it would ignore what's ever in that boundary area and it would just hatch right through that door. So again, we want to make sure that we're using the boundary option with the outer detection. And we can also define that we don't want to include the boundary. So just like we did with this one, we can say, don't include the boundary, just include the pattern. I'm then going to select the select boundaries option. I'm going to bring my cursor into the drawing area, and I can see that the area highlights in a green outline. So I can select this area, I can select this area, and I can select this area. And when I hit enter on my keyboard, it will bring up the fact that I've selected those three areas. I can then say preview, and it will show me what that looks like. If I'm happy with how that looks, I can right click and say finish, and it will add in those values. These will always be added in on the current layer that you have selected at the top of the screen. So right now, everything is inserting on a CAD layer. I can say I want that to be on a hatch layer. So it will change the layer, it will change the line style, it will change the color of that layer for me, and I can make those adjustments afterwards. So if I make that adjustment after the fact, or if I know I'm going to be drawing hatching, I would go up here and I would select drafting hatch, and the next hatch that I add in would use that particular layer. So this layer is the current layer that's going to be used for whatever command that you use next. So if you draw in a line, add in a hatch pattern, it will always go in using that specific layer. So that takes care of adding in our elevations. I'm going to again pause here for just a minute just to see if anybody has any questions about adding in elevation views, adding in hatch patterns. All right, perfect. So there doesn't appear to be any questions on that. So we're now going to move on to adding in our sections. So I'm going to select the sections tab, and we're now going to go in and we're going to add in our section views with datum lines. So, oh, we do have a question, so let's just go in there. Oh, sorry, I just accidentally deleted that question out trying to open it. Can you type that question in again for me, please? I apologize. While you're typing that, I'm just going to move on to the sections. So we're going to add in our section view. So again, we're going to go back to insert. We're going to use our define smart view option, and we're going to select the section option. And I'm going to select sections, and I'm going to insert section 1. In the insert of our section 1, we're just going to insert this with our datum lines again. So again, I just want to show the grade. I want to show the head heights, and we want to do that for our ground floor, and we'll do that for the foundation too, and we'll change that to be yes. Pardon me. We want that to be at a 1/4 inch scale. Again, we're going to use our view filter option. You can again use the view filter option to turn things on or off if you need to for your section views. We're going to open this up because I do want to show certain elements of this file that aren't currently turned on. So as an example, if I open up the plus sign beside ceilings, we can see that ceiling framing isn't being displayed. For a section view, that's important. So I want that to be displayed. So I'm going to open up the view, open up the visibility for ceiling framing. Same is going to be true for our structural floor system. So I want to make sure the structural floor is also displayed. Under roofs, I also want to see, so I got to unlock it, and turn the framing on for our roofs. And same with our walls. I want to see the framing in my walls when I cut a section. So making sure that all of those options are turned on, we can simply select OK, and we'll now see the framing elements within those walls. Within those walls, ceilings, roofs, floors, all that information is now being displayed. Again, what you see is what you get, so make sure everything is visible within that drawing area. We have our datum line selected, we have it set to 1/4 inch, it's set to a drawing. We can simply select Insert. And now attached to our cursor, this might take a second to load in because there is a lot of detail here. So while that's loading in, let's revisit that question, and I promise I won't delete it this time. Let's open that up. So what if you were doing shake in the gables and horizontal on the body? Great question. So if the model that you drew showed the difference between the two, so if you actually had the horizontal siding on the body and the shake wall in the top, it would automatically show that in your elevation views because you've defined that wall in the model view. But if you haven't, then you can actually just insert it as a hidden line view, and then you would pick the points using the boundary hatch tool or the polygon tool and hatch those areas individually. So now that that's loaded, I'm going to drop in my elevation or my section here, and we're going to drop that in. I did forget to turn off the terrain, so I'm going to go in and adjust. So I'm going to select the redefine option, and under redefine, I'm going to go under my view filter, elements on terrain. I'm just going to turn those off, and we're going to say OK. So that's just going to redefine. It's going to update that smart view for me. So we won't see the actual terrain lines in that particular section. We're going to see our datum lines again. We're going to see all of the individual detail for that particular section because we turned everything on. We're going to add in another section, but this one's going to be a little bit different. So we're going to go in and we're going to select under our smart views, define smart view. We're going to use our section 2, and we're going to do something a little bit different here. So with our section 2 option selected, I'm going to go in and I'm not going to include the datum lines on this one. So we're going to say no to that. And we're going to go through and we're going to turn everything off except for our kitchen elements. So I'm going to go into my view filter. I'm going to go in and say display none except for appliances and cabinetry. I'm going to say OK. And sorry, terrain. Got to turn the terrain off too. We're going to turn that off as well. And then we're going to go in and say OK. So now we're just looking at just the elevation of our kitchen, storing our cabinets and our appliances. I also want to change the scale that this is being inserted at. I want this to go in at a 1/2 inch scale. So I'm going to say 1/2 inch scale, and I'm going to simply select Insert. Again, making sure it's a drawing, Insert, and again, this might take a second to load, and we'll now have that view added in. So we'll drop in that view. If I'm working on a sheet and it has multiple views, I will probably want to make sure I give these specific names. So I'm going to go back to Tools, and I'm going to select the text option, and I'm going to add in some text. I'm going to change this to be the titles option, which will give me a text that's a little bit bigger, so it'll be a 1/2 inch text size. And then I'm just going to type in what I want. So if you remember back in the model view, I mentioned that using the text tool in model view is handy for just adding in your room names, but for notes and certain things, you'll probably want to use the working drawing sheets to do that. That's because of the advanced options that you have in the working drawing sheets when it comes to adding in text. You'll now notice that we have the ability to add in a bunch more different controls or different options for our text. So that's why I recommend getting the room names added in is pretty simple. They're not going to have a lot of information on them other than just the actual name. But here you can add in additional features for text. And what we're going to type in here, we're just going to call this, I'm going to go cap locks, I'm going to say section 1, and I'm going to select it. and I'm going to make sure that I have that set to italic and underlined, and then I'm going to simply select OK. And now I'm going to have the section 1 option, and I can add that in as a designation. So I can see that is now section 1. I can go again, tools. I'm going to change to be titles. I'm again going to add in, and we're going to call this cabinet, and we'll say layout. Pardon me, I want that to be italic and underlined as well. Sorry, italic and underlined. And then I say OK, and I'm going to drop that in as well. But this is at a 1/2 inch scale, so I do want to add in a secondary option in here, and I'm going to drop that in, and we're just going to go here, and I'm going to change this one to be notes, which will be a 1/4 inch, and I want this to be scale, and we're going to do the quotes, and then we're going to go colon, and then we're going to go in and say 1/2 inch equal to 1 foot 0 inches. And then I'm just going to say OK, and I'm going to drop that in right underneath that option. So now we can see that this view is a 1/2 inch, while everything else is a 1/4 inch on that drawing. The other thing I wanted to point out here is adding in dimensions on a view that you have actually scaled. So right now we are working in a 1/4 inch environment. So if I right click on my screen and I look at the view properties, I am working in a 1/4 inch environment. The views I'm adding in are 1/4 inch. The sheet that I'm working on is 1/4 inch. So when I add this in at a 1/2 inch, the dimensions are going to be off. So if I go in and I dimension this, so I'm going to go up and select dimensions, linear dimensions, and I'm just going to go from this point to this point here, and I bring that up, we're going to see that 2 foot dimension. Well, that's actually wrong. And if we continue that, so if we go continuous, and I just simply select continuous, and I select that option, and I go from there to there, we can see that these dimensions are not correct. So what is it doing? We've inserted it as a 1/2 inch scale on a 1/4 inch sheet. So it's actually doubling the size of the text. So what I would need to do is simply select the text, and on the right hand side under the object properties, I can see I have a value scale. So again, like I said, it's double the size. So I just have to hack that. I just have to go into 0.5, and it will change the scale back to that 1/4 inch. So again, I'm inserting a 1/2 inch scale drawing on a 1/4 inch sheet, which is double the size. I would need to reduce the scale of that text to affect that. I can see a question's already popped up on this. So I'm just going to click on that, and let's see. Okay, I'm going to leave that one to the end because that one's more of a suggestion than a question. So I'll leave that one in there for now. And then you would just need to select each of these. And with each of these, you would just go in and again, just half that value. So we'll do, again, 0.5, and we'll do 0.5. And again, that will adjust those particular dimensions to be the correct size. So that takes care of adding in our sections. I do want to actually go in and show adding in some details to our sections. So when we look at our section view, we actually are showing just the default value of what that section shows. So we're seeing our wood floors, we're seeing our wood in our walls, we're seeing our veneer, our doors, roofs, ceilings, all that information is added in. But we might want to show even further detail. Maybe we want to show bad insulation on the inside. So to do that, we're going to go back over to our Draw tab. And under our Draw tab, we're going to select the Details option. And under Details, we're going to use the drop down, and we're going to select Bad Insulation. And when you select Bad Insulation, this is a 3-part command. So the first point, and this is how I always try to define it, you select your first point, you select the height that you want that to go, So we're going to go from one point to the next. And then what is the depth or what is the thickness of that bad insulation? So we're going to go from one point, so bottom point to the blocking, and then from the blocking, or sorry, from the top, from the left side of the blocking over is going to define our actual width. And we'll now see that bad insulation in that part of the wall. Again, one more time, we're going to select our bad insulation, specify your first point, moving up to define the height, and then define the width. To give this even more context, let's add in bad insulation in our ceiling. Maybe we want to show that bad insulation in the ceiling as well. So again, we're going to select the bad insulation. We're going to specify our first point. So this time we're running lengthwise across our model. So we're going to go from left to right. And then what is the thickness of that bad insulation? And if you look down at the bottom in our commander, we can actually define a height in here as well. So you can move this up or down and say, I want 8-inch thick of bad insulation in my ceiling. So you can again define the values, but again, bad insulation is going to be left to right, up or down, and then defining the actual thickness of the bad insulation. And there are a couple of different controls in here. You can show the masonry wood section cuts. You can show the rigid insulation in there. We also have a roof symbol option, and I'm going to show that one on our elevation page. So you might need to show what the elevations, or sorry, what the slopes of your roofs are on your elevations. So if we go back to our details and I select the roof symbol option, you're going to get the roof slope symbol dialog. And in here, you're basically going to define what the slope of the roof is. So let's say you forgot what the slope of the roof is when you added it in. So you can actually just go in here and say, I want to specify this slope from here to here. What is that slope? So we are working with an 812 slope. So next it's going to ask you, well, what's the text style do you want to use? We want to use dimensions. So we're going to use that dimension style again for our design. Then it's going to ask you for the length. So by default, we're doing a rise over run of 12 inches. So it's going to default to 12 inches here. It seems pretty small when I do this, so I always bump this up to be 2 feet. I just increase the size of it a little bit. And then the alignment. So it's saying to the right side. The best way to figure out what is left and right is basically where the text is going to be. So I want the text on the right side of this one. So I'm going to say right, and I'm going to say OK. And now attached to my cursor is that value, and I can see how that is going to look. I can still edit this, so I can go in and adjust the value so it doesn't show that 8.00. I can just make that an 8. Just to give you an idea of the size. So again, I did that at 2 feet. You can make it 1 foot if you want to. Go to the left side. Make sure that that is 8 instead of 8.00, and then you can drop it in. And that's why I adjusted. It just looks small to me, so I just adjust it so it's a little bit bigger, so you can see how that is actually going to look. And that's how you can add in your some more detail to your elevations as well. In our sections, we also have the ability to add in additional text. So I can go up and I can select Tools, Text, and I can do text description. And if I do text description, I can select this wall, and it will automatically now show me the 2x6 cement board siding wall. And I actually did the wrong one there. I apologize. I want to do tools, and I want to do description with a leader. So I'm going to select description with leader. I'm going to select that wall. I'm going to select the first point. I'm going to turn angle snap on. So I'm going to hit F6 on my keyboard to enable angle snap. And I'm going to drop that first point in. And I want that to go on a 45-degree angle. And I'm going to drop it in. And I'm going to see that 2x6 cement board siding wall. I'm going to move this down a little bit. So I want this to just go down just a bit like so. And I can edit this. So I can add more information to this. So if I click on this contents option, I can go into 2x6 cement board siding. I can hit enter. And I can then say, I want to then see my house wrap. And I'm going to turn off cap locks here just to keep it consistent. So we're going to go house wrap, enter. I'm then going to see cap locks OSB, and then we're going to go enter, turn off cap locks. We're then going to see our 2x6 stud, and then enter. We're then going to see our vapor barrier. We're going to see our bad insulation. And then we're going to see our vapor barrier. And then we're going to see our drywall. And you can add in the drywall. You can then add in the sizes of it as well if you wanted to. And then we're just going to simply select OK. When you look at it, it's going to be kind of crammed, but you can actually move that value up or down to center it. So you can actually get a value, you can actually see everything that's a part of that particular wall that we're working with. So next we're going to add in our site plan. So I'm going to go back to our site plan here, and I do see a question in here. So I'm going to go through that in just a second here. So I'm going to open up questions. Question is, can you show a tile backsplash? Yes, you can show a tile backsplash on that view as well. So if we go back to our sections and details, if I zoom in on that, if I wanted to show a tile backsplash in here, I would go into my draw option. I would use the polygon option here, and I would go polygon hatch. I'll include the boundary line for now, and then I would just go in and say select the option, and we should have a tile ceramic option here. And I would just go in and say OK, and then OK. And then I would just pick the points on where I want this to go. And in this particular case, I'm just going to go to here for now. And you would then show that tile backsplash for that particular area. And again, you can show the boundary lines if you want to and adjust that as needed. But that's how you would add in the tile backsplash in that elevation view as well. Okay, so we're going to go back to our site plan, and we're going to add in our site plan here. So in our site plan, we are just going to add in just the roof surface with our site plan. So I'm going to go back to Insert. I'm going to select the Smart Views option, and I'm going to insert just the actual site plan. So under my View filter, I'm going to go in and I'm going to say Display None except for the roofs. On the elements on terrain, I don't need to see the terrain, but I do need to see the site boundaries. On notation, I don't need to see any of the text or the dimensions, and I don't need to see the section marks. So I'm going to turn all of those elements off, and then we're going to simply say OK. Again, what you see is what you get, so make sure everything is within that view. We're working with a site plan, so 1/4 inch is probably going to be too large, but let's try it. We'll insert it and see. And we're simply going to select Insert. And when we insert that in, we are too large. So we're going to go in, we're going to select that Smart View, and we're going to redefine it. And we're going to go down to 3/16 of an inch. And then we're going to say Update. This one will fit like so. We can get that perfectly in that drawing area. So now we can see our site plan in our sheet. We can see our roof. Depending on where you are, you may need to show the walls. So you would just turn the walls on and turn the roof off, depending on what you need to show for your measurements to your actual setback lines. So here we can see that we're dimensioning from our roof to our setback line. So I'm going to go back to Tools, Linear Dimension, from here to here, and I'm going to drop that dimension in. But if you remember, that's not the correct dimension. We are dimensioning now in a 1/4 inch environment, but this is 3/16. So this is a third smaller than our drawing file. Than our view scale. So I need to select this, and under my view scale, I need to increase that to 3, 3. So it's a third. And then when I adjust it, we will now see the correct size. So again, we went down a size, so we need to increase that value by a third. So we went by that 0.33 to incorporate our third value. And now we can see that correct distance. If we go back to model view, and if we dimension, just so that we can see that that is true, so dimensions, linear dimension, from this wall, or sorry, that roof to there, we're seeing that 3 foot 1 1/4. So when I go back to my site plan, that is the correct value because I did use that third value to scale it. And again, you can add in multiple dimensions in here if you need to. Just again, remember that this is at that 3/16, so you will need to scale the actual text. So the next thing I wanted to show is how you can actually print these out. So you can actually now go up to File and Print, and you can do a batch print if you want to. It'll actually print all of your sheets at the same time, but you need to set that up. To set that up, you can go into your View Properties, View Manager. So go to View and then View Manager. And in your View Manager, you can define how you want each sheet to print out. So right now, none of these sheets have a printer assigned to them, so it wouldn't actually print with the batch printing anyways. I would need to set that up. But you would go through and then under Print Properties, select the plotter that you want to use. So if you're going to be printing to a PDF plotter, then you want to make sure you select the PDF writer that you have installed on your computer. I'm just going to use the Qt PDF option. And again, this is a 1/4 inch sheet. We are working on a ArchD size sheet in a landscape format. And so I'm going to make sure that I am printing to an exact window. So I want to make sure that I'm windowing this from this point to this point, like so. And it will now create that sheet in the proper area. And instead of print scaling fit to page, I want that to print to scale. And then I want that to print as black. If I wanted this to print as color, I could uncheck this option and it will then print as color. I'm going to keep that as print as black. I want this to show the line weights, and I'm going to say OK. And you would do that for each of your sheets. Then when you go to File, Print, it'll already be set up for you, and all you have to do is select Print. So if you set up your View Manager with the print plotter settings already defined, as soon as you go to print, it will recognize that and it will print it out. If you want to print all of your sheets at the same time, you can select your batch printing option. So before the end of the class, I do want to quickly go over adding in or creating a template. So if you're following along, go back to Model View, to go up to File and select New. In here, we're going to select just the new standard home construction, and we're going to select Create. This will create a brand new blank drawing based on the template that we just selected. And we're going to create our own template. So what we're going to do here is under the building locations, so under Settings, Building Locations, we're going to change this just a little bit to define a new value. So I want this to be a 9-foot wall height. If I'm adding 1 foot to the wall height, then my floor height for my second floor is also going to change. I'm going to want to make sure I add that 1 foot to the second floor wall elevation, or sorry, it's the second floor level as well. I'm also going to want to make sure that I change my ceiling heights to be 9 foot on that ground floor. I'm also going to want to adjust my framing options. So under framing options, I don't want to have these walls to be blocked. So I'm going to double click on this option, and I'm just going to change this to be 16 inches on center with a double top plate, and I'm going to say OK. You can adjust anything you want in here. I'm just doing some basics in here just to give you an idea. Then we're going to say OK, and we're going to say OK. So we've adjusted some of these values to make this template a little bit different. I'm now going to go up and I'm going to select Settings, Document Settings. And under my document settings, I can turn certain things on or off. So maybe I don't like to draw with certain elements enabled, like the grid. so I can turn the grid off. If I'm on my building, if I'm on my units of measure, maybe I don't want my precision to be right down to a 1/16th of an inch. Maybe that's too precise. Maybe I need to be just down to 1/2 an inch. So I can adjust the precision to be 1/2 an inch. I can also go through and adjust my datum lines. So if you remember, we adjusted our datum lines to show the line style as a dash option. We also adjusted our text to be on the left side for our actual elevation heights. So again, you can control how you want that to be for your particular template. And then the main options that we want to make sure we adjust is our dimensions, auto interior and auto exterior, because this is going to be a setting that'll be set up for you based on that template. So if you set all of these up here, it will automatically be set up when you start a new drawing using that template. Once you're happy with everything, you can simply select apply and then OK. In your working drawing sheets, this is where we can take advantage of the title block editing that we just did in our class. So we can go through here, edit the definition, delete out that logo, add in a new logo, edit the text information in here so it shows the correct information that we want for our particular sheets, and you can add in whatever you want in here. You can also define, again hitting escape to get out of the definition, if you're defining that you want this to be a template that's only going to use 11 by 17 size sheets, then you can go through and you can delete out the main title block, use our insert block option and select the 11 by 17 title block and drop it in, and you'll now have an 11 by 17 title block. And you would then do that for each of your sheets. So again, we're going to go through here, delete, add in a new block, 11 by 17, say OK. This one is going to be A2, and this is going to be cap blocks, elevations, and we'll say OK, and OK. And then details, we'll delete this one out, delete, add in our new one, again using the 11 by 17 title block. This will be A3, and this will be details, and then we'll say OK and OK, and we'll drop that one in. And then our site plan, again, same thing, delete, add in your new one, 11 by 17. This will be A4, and this will be site plan. And we'll leave that at 1/4 inch for now. We'll say OK and OK, and we'll drop that one in. And you can also add in additional sheets. So maybe you want an electrical sheet. So you can select one of the sheets, copy the view. So I just right-clicked on site plan, and I select copy view, and it will create a brand new view. If I go into my view manager, I can refine this so it doesn't say site plan copy. I can say I want this to be obviously sheet 5, and we want this to be electrical. If I can spell electrical. And then I can say that I want that to be at a certain size as well and say OK. And then in the attributes, I would make that A5, and I would make that cap blocks electrical and say OK. And then OK. So now we have all of our title blocks set up at 11 by 17 scale. I always recommend zoom extents on each of these pages, because if you save it with it in certain views, that's how it's going to open up in your template. So I always double check that each sheet is expanded to fit the page so it looks correct. And then I go back to model. I do the same thing in my model view. I zoom extents to make sure everything is visible. Some people like to see the green square so they know exactly where they're drawing. Some people don't, so it's a preference. I'm going to leave this one as the green square extended so that we can see the entire terrain. And then we're just going to go up and we're going to select File and Save As. We're now going to save this in a specific location. So underneath Save In, I'm going to use my drop down. I'm going to go to my C drive. I'm going to go to Program Data. I'm going to go to CADsoft, Envisioneer 16, templates. And I'm going to save this into that templates folder. Again, I'm just going to use the drop down so you can see program data, CADsoft, Envisioneer 16, templates. Once I'm happy with the location, I give the file a name. And I'm going to call this new, and I got cap locks on, so I'm going to go in and say new template. And before you click save, select options. Under options, this is where you can control how this is going to be displayed in your templates folder. So you can use the last image or last open view, or you can add in an actual image file, and you can choose any file that you want here. So if you want your company logo, you can use that as the template option. And then you can add in additional information, so actually adding in some notes. So here we can say that this is a template specified in feet and inches at a default scale of 1/4 inch. It is a wood frame construction, and we're going to go in, and you have to hold the control key down to add in a new line. And then we're going to type in 11 by 17 title block. So we know that this is using an 11 by 17 title block in our working drawing sheets. And we can then say, okay. We can also add in that 11 by 17 in the actual name. So we can very quickly see that this is a new template with an 11 by 17 designation. And then we simply select OK, and I got to go back into this folder here. And then we simply select save. Once you've saved it, simply select File and Close. We don't want to draw in that file. That's not what that was for. We're creating a template. We now go File, New, and you'll now see that new template in that list. So now when we open up a new drawing and we use that, it'll always open up using those settings that we defined. So our building locations will show up with the ground floor at 9-foot wall heights. We've rounded it to 1/2 inch, so it's going to round everything up for us. Our framing options are going to be just to a double top plate, 16 inches on center. And when we go to our working drawing sheets, we can see our added sheet, and everything will be using the 11 by 17 title block. So that's how you can create and customize your own templates. So I'm going to go through and open up the questions again. There was one question that I pushed to the end here. So I think it would be nice for us to set group name for a group of settings, and instead of having to go in and change all the different on-off views, you could just pull up your preference settings. Yes, you can do that. So just like the elevation view, you can add in your own view templates. So if I go into my model view, and I open up, I'm just going to go File, Close to this, and I go into my View Filter, and I select View Filter. In here, I have a template, and it's just a default, and I have the elevation option. I can add in a new one. So if I want to have an electrical plan as an option, or a kitchen cabinet layout, or something like that, I can create a new filter. I'm just going to go New Filter, and it's going to adopt from the default. And then I would just go through and select what I don't want to see. So on an electrical plan, I'm going to give it a name first. We're going to call this one electrical plan. So electrical, let's go electrical view. And so in here, I'm going to want to see the electrical elements, obviously. Maybe I don't want to see certain things. So I don't want to see interior furniture as an example. I do want to see the lighting. I don't need to see interior accessories. I don't need to see, we'll just use that as an example for now. So we're going to turn off interior accessories and interior furniture. And then I simply select Save. Make sure you have Include in Menu enabled. Select Save. And now in your drop-down list, you'll have your default, your electrical view, and your elevation option. So you can add as many as you want in here. And again, you're just going to denote which options you want to be visible in that view when you select it. And then you can simply select the view and apply it, and it will automatically turn off those elements if they're a part of your view. So again, I'll pause here for a second to see if there's any other questions or any follow-ups to that one. Like I mentioned, the class was recorded, so I will be posting that up to YouTube, so you will be able to watch that. I'll also be sending out an email that has a document that you can refer to, and you can try this out on your own. You have the model already. I did send those out to you, so that should be already in your inbox if you haven't already opened it. And then you have the ability to try this out on your own. If you happen to have questions while doing that, please don't hesitate. Give us a call. Let us know. Send us an email. We'll be happy to help you out and get you any questions you may have answered promptly for you. So that appears to be all the questions. So I do want to thank everybody for attending today. I do look forward to speaking with you all again very soon. So thank you very much, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day.